Welcome back to the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. Today, our guest is Jaci Russo on the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. And she is the co-founder and CEO of brandRUSSO, a published author and a sought-after speaker on all things branding. And she's taught branding and marketing across the country. So if you're into branding, this is going to be a good conversation for you. Now, we'll be getting advice from Jaci on how to grow the business to 7 figures. What I'm also hoping we learn more about is what a branding agency specifically is and how it might be useful for your business. And then also how to make it work, pun intended, when working with your husband and then also your children, because she has that going on right now in her company. And then I want to finally kind of touch on with her, how did she manage motherhood as she has 4 children and also running her business? I think that will be important for a lot of the women out there because a lot of you guys are mothers. So don't forget, if you have not downloaded the Money Mapper yet, the link is at the bottom of the show notes, and you can use this plug and play worksheet that will help you discover financial independence as a business owner and freelancer. So Jaci, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about your business a little bit. Okay. So I was going into a little bit of research with you, and you've had it since 2001.
Correct.
Right. You founded something called Brand State U, which is an affordable online learning platform for small businesses and do-it-yourself marketers. You were inducted into the Acadiana Business Hall of Fame. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay, good.
Close. Acadiana. Very close.
Acadiana. Ah, so close. You host brand builder workshops and you have a Razor branding podcast. So there's a lot going on with your business. And I don't know if you just like built it up over time, but when I'm going through, I'm like, whoa, there's this and that and this and that. And so let's go to like the core of it first. Like, what is a branding agency and what made you decide to start one?
Sure. So for us, we regard branding as the umbrella. It's the emotional connection that people have with your company, your products, your services, you. And so it's reputation, but it's more than that. It's the reason why people pick you instead of other options. And the most important part of that sentence is emotional connection. We don't really make decisions based on logical reasons. We just use logic to justify our choices. We make our decisions based on emotion. So we have to give people emotional reasons to choose us.
I actually had a woman on my podcast. We'll put this in the show notes. She specifically worked with companies on branding to appeal to the female consumer and specifically automotive industry, because she said that women have such a buying power, but the automotive industry seems to ignore that. So she was working with them to but she talked all about branding in that. And give us some like tips. If you're a new business owner, or even if you've been in business 5 years, we'll say 0 to 5 years, what is something that they might not know about branding or branding for their own business that they should?
I can guarantee that 99% of the people listening right now have too broad an audience. They are trying to reach too many people, and it's allowing them to connect with no one. And so the very first thing you need to do, we call it focus, is become very focused, very targeted, very specific, very segmented on the target audiences. And you can have multiple target audiences. You can have a primary, tertiary, secondary. So 1, 2, 3. You don't have to just have the one, because everybody's always worried about eliminating opportunities and missing a chance to make $1. I get that. But if you try to go wide and reach too many people, you're going to actually connect with no one.
Ooh, I like that. So let's just take my business. All right. So coaching for women to become freelancers, right? So we've got the course, which anyone can take. It starts like basics, foundation, how to register a business, all the way through to how to price yourself as a high ticket service provider. And then my cohorts, though, are for people who have been freelancing for a while, who at least have gotten a few clients who just need to revamp and rehaul their business. So would we say then, what would be my primary audience and what would be my secondary audience? Because I've always looked at it as women freelancers within 5 years of business.
Okay, so you did that in, I believe, based on the very little amount of information I just got. Your first audience that you mentioned that's starting is your primary, and your cohort would be your secondary, because, I mean, you could think of it like a funnel, right? They're starting in the top and you're pulling them through to the bottom. But you've already started to segment a little bit, because you said startups, you've said women, and you've said freelancers. So we're already starting to separate those women from the rest of Gen Pop. That's not everybody. There's some selection happening. I would say there may be some geographical because it's English speaking. So you're limiting again.
Correct.
But now I would dig even deeper to say, okay, this is now the big pot, is what we've just rattled off. Now, how do we become even more? Is it freelance graphic designers, freelance writers, freelance photographers, freelance videographers? Because they have different needs. So the more you can select and segment and specify, the more your information is going to be exactly what they need at exactly the right time. And they're going to feel seen, and they're going to feel heard, and they're going to feel like you have all the answers because you do.
It's like, I think one of the narrowing down is actually I work mostly with women who have some kind of corporate background. That's they want to either leave corporate or they've had a corporate past. So then give me an example of one of your favorite success stories that you've seen just really blew it out of the water with your business.
Sure. So, and this is a few years ago, we were working with a bank. We do primarily B2B work at the agency. And so we're working with a bank, and the bank is small. They're okay. They're doing fine, but not great. And so again, they're trying to be too wide and serve too many people. And so as we did our raise your branding process, which is our research that we go through to develop a plan, think about it like an architect and a contractor, that design build that's happening when you're building a house. It's like that, but for building your business. And we realized that there was a huge gaping hole in the market when it came to business banks specifically. And so rather than trying to talk to kids who are just starting to come into the workforce and need to get a checking account, and households who maybe need a savings account and a checking account and a Christmas account, because they save a little bit for Christmas presents, that this bank really could fill the void for business specific things, and making them all about business. They would get the other accounts, but they would get a lot more. And so we were able to help them grow their deposits to the $1 billion threshold, which was a 26% growth for them in 18 months.
Just by focusing in on that branding and exactly who they were serving.
Correct.
Amazing. That's
Correct.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that branding is such a popular topic for at least in my cohorts. And this is a different industry, obviously, but for freelancing, I have seen freelancers who do really well who don't have any branding. And again, this is a different market. Like, it's not a startup, it's not a company.
I'll stop and just say that when we talk about branding, everybody has a brand because it's your reputation. It's the emotional choice that people are going to make to pick you. The brand identity, the logo, is one visual representation of branding, but it's not the brand. The brand isn't the logo. It's not the company. It's not the services. It's not the product. So when you're thinking about a brand and somebody says, what brand cereal? That's like the 8th version of the definition in the book. In the dictionary, the first definition, emotional connection. That's really what we're looking for.
Emotional connection.
Yep.
Got it.
The reason why somebody's going to choose you over the other options. It's a
crowded. So you've been it is a crowded market. Everything is a crowded marketplace, no matter what you're going into. Even Amazon was a little bit crowded when it started out. So you've been in business then, let's say 22 years. Very impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When did you start building on your business? Because like I mentioned, you've got the founded brand State You have workshops, you've got the podcast. When did you do this bit by bit, or did you just one year say, oh, we really need to start expanding and increase our footprint?
It was all really natural growth. I'm not Taylor Swift with some sort of mastermind plan, and I'm thinking, 17 steps ahead. I admire her business acumen. I think she's brilliant. That is not my skill set. See an opportunity, take an opportunity, see an opportunity, screw up an opportunity. That's sort of been my path. I would call myself an accidental entrepreneur, but somebody else already claimed that title, so I don't get to use it. I grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana, went to college here, moved to Los Angeles, worked on the West Coast for CAA, which is a talent agency, and then for a startup company, which is my first real world of startup experience. producing movies and doing marketing and developing products and doing the marketing around those products. And then going to work for Barry Diller, who was buying Home Shopping Network and Ticketmaster and USA Network and all these properties. So that was kind of the 90s for me. Moved back home and worked in-house. And in the process of working in-house, met Michael. We had our first date in January. We got engaged in April. We got married in October. And we had a baby 10 months later.
Oh.
So in the year and a half of knowing each other, we went from meeting to a family like that. Wow. And I mean, 25, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. So far, so good.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. But so the point is, it all moved very quickly. I was still working in-house and very limited on PTO. And so when we popped up pregnant right after our honeymoon, well, I guess about 4 months later, I kind of figured out like, oh, I'm not just tired. Like, oh, wait, something's happening. And so when I went to my boss, he was like, well, you just took off time to get married. Now you're gonna have to take off time for this baby. And I thought, okay, I have heard about these stories, but now I'm living it for the first time. And so they said, can you have the baby on a Wednesday so that you can be back at work on the Monday?
No.
Yes. I had no time off. And I guess lucky, unlucky, I'm not really sure how we're going to phrase that. I ended up being 2 weeks late. And so we had to induce. And so I did get to schedule an induction. So I scheduled it on the Wednesday and I was back at work on the Monday.
Wait, like physically back in work, right? Like,
I mean, that baby's 24 now. So there was no work from home.
Yeah.
Zoom. So yeah, like physically back at work. And don't even get me started on episiotomies and stitches and like,
yeah, no, I've had 2 kids. I know.
Yeah. So miserable. And so back at work, literally baby in the, like in my lap at the desk. Cause where do you take a 5-day-old?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a great environment, to say the least. And so imagine all of our surprise when, let's see, Jackson was 6 months old when I found out I was pregnant with Jordan. Right. I mean, I married a good Catholic, and so here we are. And I'm now going to have to go tell my boss that I'm having a second baby in a matter of 3 years. And he's still, annoyed that I took time off to go on a 1-week honeymoon because that was the whole way I got the first kid, so it's like, it's all to him. It all goes back to that. Like, and so I'm at lunch with my in-laws for Sunday supper or Sunday dinner. And we were talking about this predicament that I'm finding myself in with no time off and what I'm going to do. And my father-in-law said, you need to go work for yourself. Nobody ever gets ahead in a W-2 job. And I mean, I'm not dumb. I'm a fairly smart person, but I thought, I don't even know what that means. Like, isn't everybody a W-2 worker? Like, I don't understand. And then, I started to realize that was baby brain. And I could be a freelancer. And but Michael, I'm married to a graphic designer. So I see how he could be a freelancer. I'm a freelance marketing director. That's not a thing. And so we talked about it and I realized, oh, wait, I'm a certified media buyer. I could do that. I could do this. I could do that. And we had the conversation the first week of October. I had some really great media relationships because I was buying a lot of media for my client, my boss. And so I went to them and said, I'm thinking about doing this. I've heard there's some other people in town that do it freelance. Introduce me. So I asked them questions and learned how they did what they did. Also figured out who they worked for because I didn't want to step on their toes and take somebody else's business. And the media reps started bringing me the people that they couldn't get a yes from. Oh, I went and pitched this furniture store and he shut me out and I couldn't get anywhere. You try. Oh, I went and pitched this car dealer. I went and pitched this restaurant. And so I walked in, waddled in, because at this point I'm 7-8 months pregnant, and said, I'm doing this thing and I'd love to have a shot. Here's my pitch. Yes. The furniture store, the restaurant, the car dealer, all the ones that those reps got no's from, I got yeses from. And within about 3 months, I was able to make as much money in those freelance clients, actually about twice as much as I was making in-house. So I walked into that boss and said, hi, today's my last day as an official employee. Would love to have you as a client. Let's try it for 6 months. If you love it, great. We'll keep, we'll talk about it. If you don't, no problem. That gives you time to replace me. Nothing will change. You make the exact same payment, but you don't have to pay payroll taxes because I'll be independent contractor. You don't have to pay my health care. I'm out. And luckily for me and for him, he said yes. And that was a 6-month stint. And then he went on his own way, thankfully. And I went on my own way. And I mean, technically I had an agency of one employee, but that's how it all started.
Wow. Wow. That story had me going like roller coaster, like up and down, like mad at your former boss, but then like rooting for you at the same time. Like, good for you getting out there when you're pregnant and doing it. I love it.
Yeah.
So then how did you balance motherhood with these young babies? And then you had 2 more and
Correct.
still managed to run this agency. And when did you pull your husband on board?
So he got pulled in kind of early because these media buying clients needed creative, so I was, and this is, think about it, this is early 2000s. So it was heavy TV, heavy radio, newspaper, billboard, all the traditional advertising. Digital wasn't a thing yet. Social wasn't a thing yet. I mean, Zuckerberg was still like in grade school. So it was a very different landscape. And so I have a furniture store that I'm doing a media schedule for. They're out there, placed at $100,000 worth of media for them in a small local market. Well, they need a TV spot. They need a radio spot. They need a billboard design. And I knew enough about marketing and advertising to appreciate the necessity for it to have some consistency. So if I had the local TV station do one and the local radio station do one and the local newspaper do one, they're not going to look alike. There's no continuity. There's no ability to really do it strategically in the right way. So Michael started doing that work for me at night. I mean, that's what he did during the day for his boss. And about 4 months in, I now have a toddler, a newborn, and a husband who says, hey, I'm doing more work for you at night than I'm doing for my real job during the day. I'm tired. Can I just work for you? Can we just do this agency together? And I was like, oh, great. So now we're both going to be unemployed. That's the scariest thing I can imagine. But I said,
Wait,
yeah.
but you weren't unemployed. You had clients. Why did you look at it as unemployed?
I felt unemployed.
Because I mean, and also like he's probably like the steady income or like whatever,
Correct.
like, yeah. So you're like relying that like at least he has a paycheck coming in.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so what if all my clients say no tomorrow? Which is
I have that fear all the time.
23 years later, I still have the fear. And obviously there's no, I mean, knock wood, I don't think there's a chance of that happening, but who knows? And so I said, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I don't want you to burn out. I need you, I need you healthy. And so now it's August and we're both unemployed. It's how it feels. And we're growing. We've got, a bunch of clients. We've got a lot of work. We've hired an employee. We can't work out of the house anymore. We've rented an office space. Now it's September 1st. And then 9/11 happened.
Oh,
yeah. I had 3 clients go out of business. I had every client stop their spending immediately. Nobody knew what was going to happen next. I mean, the entire country stopped.
Yeah.
We all ceased to function for an indefinite period of time. And I thought, okay, well, this is my worst fear come true. Like, we're going to lose all of our clients. We're going to, they're going to foreclose on the house. We're going to run through our savings and what little, $5 we started saving for the kids for college. And I've got an employee and he's the breadwinner for his family. So thankfully, the country eventually, started to come back from 9/11. I picked up more clients because that was my job primarily. I acquired and managed the clients and then the creative team, and we kept growing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then, like to circle back to that important question, how did you manage that with the kids? Like, what did you work with the kids at home? Did you hire a nanny? Did you have to put them in daycare? Like, what ended up happening?
We found a sitter who took 6 kids in her house. So to me, it was the best of both worlds. And so she took kid number 1 and then kid number 2. And it was easy. She was there. She was like a grandmother. She was awesome. She came to all their birthday parties. She taught me so many things that I had no idea what I was doing. She was an incredible influence in our lives. And she was this old Cajun grandma who was awesome. And when the 3rd came around, I'm like, okay, well, we can't keep bringing them to Miss Edna. Like, that's just not an option. It's actually less expensive to put them in daycare now. And the older ones started to need more educational. So we did that for a little bit. And then I was pregnant with the 4th one. And so now I'm thinking, this is all in the span of 4 years. So now I'm thinking, okay, we got to figure this out. So then it made more sense to hire somebody in our house. That was cheaper and easier for me. And so the daycare teacher for number 2 said, yeah, I'd love to. So she left the daycare and came home and work from our house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What we
But
can take away from this is that it all works out.
it all works out. You just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I can probably list 1,000 mistakes that I made in those first 5 years. But we look back on our 5th anniversary. We'd been married for 60 months. I had been pregnant for 40 of them because we had 4 kids in 4 years, and we'd built a business. And in year 3, we crossed the $1 million threshold. And so I thought, well, I mean, we're doing all right. And we just kept growing.
Wow. Do you ever look back at that time and just like it's a blur?
It's a
Do you
blur.
feel like yeah.
It's a blur. And it's funny because the kids don't know, they don't remember that time. They don't think of it as a blur. They think mom and dad were home every day at 5 o'clock for dinner. Mom and dad went to every one of our sporting events, every one of our school functions. They think it's fun that we traveled by car on every vacation because it's too expensive to fly. And they just see a childhood where the 6 of us were like this little unit and we spend all of our time together. They know a lot more about marketing and advertising and logo design than they would like, but they all got a good knowledge at the dinner table. They definitely got a firsthand seat to what it's like to be an entrepreneur.
So did you and your husband try to keep like work and personal separate? Because you mentioned like talking about it at the dinner table, or did you just like throw your hands up in the air and be like, whatever, it's all blended together?
We tried. We did our best. It was our goal, but it still happened. We have said, for years that every time we hired an employee, it was someone else on the team that allowed us to not talk to each other during the day, because the more separation we have, we need more people, obviously, to manage our roster of clients and continue to do great work. I don't want to keep working in the business. I want to be able to really be the CEO and work on growing the business, which I've done a pretty good job lately of getting to that point in the past few years. But for us, the kids started to call us on it. They would say, no more work talk. I'm like, okay, done. And it was good for us to not have that be the only thing we have in common, because that's kind of boring, so it allowed us to bring more variety into our conversations.
So what advice do you think you have for women who maybe want to bring their husband on and work with them or their partner or whomever, and yet they need to find that, separation of personal and business and whatnot?
Well, I think it's about clearly defining roles. You almost have to have an org chart at the house and at the office, so you don't have overlap and you don't have gap. Knowing who's responsible for what is going to allow everybody to be more accountable, be more contributing. We've all heard the comments about dad's babysitting. Nope, dad's dadding. He's fathering, just like I'm momming and mothering. So let's talk about who's in charge of what so that it gets done, and it gets done the best way for everybody.
I said that once to my friend. I texted her that Mike, my husband, was babysitting, and she sent a scathing text in return. And I very much appreciated it, right? Because I am all about women empowerment, and then just just typing fast and slip of the tongue, and that's how we think of it. Right. And then I was like, but yeah, right. Mike would never text his friend that I'm babysitting, right? That's cool. Org charts in both the house, and that's something that I would totally love. And my husband would be like, no, thank you. But we don't work together. But even though we don't work,
it takes a lot. And I give him a lot of credit, because I think that there's been some challenges along the way, because I am the boss at the office and the team regards me as the boss at the office. And so, he's the boss of his department, but I'm the boss of the whole company and I'm the boss of my department. And so I know that is a challenge, not in a macho dude way, because that's not how he is, just in a, hey, I'm a co-founder of this company. I've been here since day one, but it's always like, what does Jackie think? So I appreciate that there's some work he's had to do for that to be okay.
So you mentioned you're trying to hire so that you can get more and more into the CEO role. I noticed you have a team of 18, including yourself. So are they contractors or employees or both?
Employees. And I think we're actually at 21 right now, because we have a few updates to make to the website. And so, we have a great team. And I think that our client life cycle of average of 5.5 years, which is far better than the national average of 18 months, tells me I have a good team. We're doing a good job of leading our clients, of understanding what they need, of doing the work to keep us on track. We don't believe in long-term contracts. We have a 30-day out clause at the agency, because if we're not getting it done, we want to part company. Nobody wants an unhappy client. And so we all take that responsibility quite seriously. And I think everybody really works hard. We've done a lot. I have made a ton of mistakes. We have collectively done a lot of work to create a culture that people want to be there. And so whether it's, snacks in the kitchen, unlimited PTO, super flex schedule, which we had before COVID, and this year's improvement, because I try to make one big improvement every year. This year, it's a 4-day work week. And so we don't open the office on Fridays. We're off.
I've been hearing more and more about that. What do you do with clients that ask or have requests that come in on Fridays?
Well, we do a couple of things. One, we are proactive. And so I can tell you right now, it's November 6th that we're recording this. Our work for December is done. We're ahead. We stay ahead. So that's 80% of what needs to happen is in December is in the can, ready to go. Sure, there'll be some things that happen over the course of the month, the new opportunities that pop up, we're going to address those. But that frees up a lot of bandwidth to make sure that there aren't last minute emergencies. We're not curing cancer. We're marketing. I mean, let's put it in some perspective. Are there really fires to be put out at 2:00 on a Friday afternoon? Well, if we do our job right, we did that work earlier in the week. And also our clients know, so they don't have an expectation that we're responding at 3:00 on Friday afternoon. They know we're going to handle it on Monday.
So, what are some, do you think, challenges you've had hiring over the years, and what have you learned from it?
So we've hired friends, and I can tell you 3 times that has been really, really an educational experience, and ended in an educational way. And then,
like, in a bad way? Are you no longer friends?
Awful way. No longer
no.
friends. Awful.
Okay.
So does that mean that we never do that again? Well, if that was the case, then the president of client success at the agency, who's been with us 8 years, who's awesome, I would not have hired, because she's the 5th friend or 6th. But my college roommate, my shorty little sis, she's brilliant. And when she decided to re-enter the job force after her 7 kids, she asked me to give her some feedback on her resume, give her some bounce back ideas on who she should apply to. And I thought, well, you're like the smartest person I know. Don't go somewhere else. So I made a job for her. Best thing I ever did. So my takeaway has always been to handle everything on a situational basis. It's not, I mean, it's a therapy thing, right? There's no always, there's no everyone. We have to be very specific about what we're saying instead of grouping people together in these big buckets. And so, yeah, for all of the misfires along the way, we've had some really great friends we've worked with that we're still friends with, that it's made our agency better, and our clients would leave us for those people in a heartbeat because they're so great. So we learn our lessons and we go.
How has your leadership and or management style changed over the years?
So, in the early days, I think it was ego-driven. I think it was fear-based. I think it was a lot of the weight of expectations and making payroll every 2 weeks. Now it's maturity. It's a little bit of longevity. I still have fear. I'm still, doesn't matter how much money we have in the bank, I'm still worried about making payroll every 2 weeks. It's a huge amount of money. And so for me, it's now about being the person that I wanted to work for when I was younger. It's about creating an atmosphere I wanted to work in. It's about knowing that my job is making sure they have every resource they need to be successful. Because if my team is successful, my clients are successful, then I get to be successful. And it's in that order. When March 15th of 2020 happened, which was our shutdown, I know everybody's kind of got varying dates within that month, but that's when we were all told, like, this is it, everybody goes home. And so I knew everybody was scared. And so I think this was really one of the first times I put that leadership mantra into practice. And I said, here's the deal. We have clients who are scared, and we're scared. If we can keep our clients open, we get to stay open, and then we get to pay our mortgages. So let's focus on that. I will guarantee you we're going to make payroll. If I have to take it out of my retirement account, if I have to take it out of my kids' college funds, whatever I have to do, we're making payroll. So don't worry about it. Just make sure our clients stay successful. And we made it through 20 without losing a client. Most of them grew. And that's when I knew that if I could keep putting them first, everything else is going to work out.
Put clients or employees first.
And the team comes first. The team makes sure the clients come first. I make sure the team comes first.
Okay. I like that.
If I put them first and they put them first, then I win.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we all win. We started a mantra a couple of years ago: happy, humble, and hungry. That's how I feel. That's what I want our agency to be. And that's the kind of client that we want. And so if we're all surrounded by people who are happy, and I don't mean like overly gross and fake, I mean like genuinely, we're genuinely happy people. Does it mean every day is a great day? No, there's some bad days, but we know that we're going to work through it. We know we're going to figure it out. Nobody's dying. It's going to be okay. Humble. The ego has to be checked at the door by us and by our clients. We're all in this together. We're working together, and we can come up with really great outcomes if we stay focused on that. And hungry. What can we go accomplish today? What great thing can we achieve? What heights can we get to? If we stay rooted in those three things, we're going to be okay.
You said and mentioned earlier that you were able to grow to 7 figures within 3 years back in the early 2000s, which is really impressive. What do you think was one of the most important steps that you took to grow to 7 figures? And would it be the same thing today?
Well, it's funny because what I did then, I completely undid 4 years ago. So what we did then, we were a media buying company. And so, we focused on getting media clients, and that was my licensing was as a media buyer. And so it was everybody who needed media. And round about the mid to end of the teens, I started to realize that the world was changing. It wasn't going to be TV and radio and newspaper ads and billboard ads anymore. It was becoming digital and social. And it was more about targeting a more select, targeted, specific audience segment. And, kind of what we talked about at the beginning. So I undid us as a media buying agency. We stopped being now. We have a few clients who still need a little bit of media, sure, and we handle it, no problem. But that's not our business anymore. And we walked away from a lot of media buying clients and a huge B2C portfolio, and became very focused on B2B and working with companies who need an outside resource to grow their business. And it's not about media, it's about strategy, and it's about the whole company, and it's about the campaign. And so then we went down to go back up again. And now we're the master of our own destinies. I'm not reliant on TV ratings and radio and digital clicks and cost per thousand. I'm able to, that's gone from 100% of our business to 5% of our business. That's how dramatic the shift was.
So what advice do you have for women then who know maybe internally they need to make that pivot and they need to change their business and where it's going, but they're scared? Because like you said, that's a low dip that happened, and then you worked your way back up. But what kind of advice do you have for them who might be struggling with that mindset or that mind block?
Well, I think part of it is figuring out what the next thing is going to be. And so I had to spend almost 2 years figuring out who we were going to be as an agency if we weren't going to be a media buying company anymore. If we weren't going to try to be that B2C full service kind of small agency doing everything for everyone. And so we had to do a lot of soul searching. We had to really dig deep on who we are and what we bring to the table. And that's where Razor branding was developed. It was the system we had been using of building out strategic brand plans for people. And we called it that, but it was just an aside. It was something we also did. And I realized that was our growth. And so that became the center of everything. So for me, first step is figuring out, who do you want to be when you grow up? What is that? What are you working towards? And then how do you do the thing, your safety, while you start to try the new thing and then make the flip? I feel like I could have done a better job of the overlap before I made the flip. I put us in a precarious position with the dip. It didn't have to be that dramatic, but it was. And we're here now. And then it's also about how can you be a lifelong learner? How can you continue to learn and grow? It seems like there's this philosophy that we get out of school and we're done learning. Now we're just doing. And I think about professional athletes, they work out more, train more, learn more once they go pro than they ever did at the high school and college level. But we don't take that into account for profession. I mean, we'll go to a conference maybe, but how do you really learn? How do you learn new skills, learn new craft? It's mandatory. We bring in professional development trainers every month. We take classes, we learn things and teach each other. We have to continue to grow or we're going to die.
I love that. That's a lot of really good advice. I've been writing it down. So what do you think, if you had to look back 23 years, what was your best investment and worst investment?
Oh, marrying my husband. For sure. I mean, hello. It's the smartest thing I ever did, was getting him, because he is my exact opposite. I am all gas and he is all brake. We are opposites in every single way. I could manage to probably burn water, and yet he makes these amazing Italian dinners for the family every night. Well, now just the two of us, because we've been empty nesters for a year and a half now. But his talent, I would still just be a freelance media buyer if it wasn't for him. And so I know that's not good advice because nobody else can have him. He's off the market. So what advice would I give, along the way for everybody else? I think it's about figuring out how you can leverage the assets you have. I didn't see the value that I brought to the table as a freelance media buyer, independent marketing director. I didn't appreciate that there was a whole market for that. And yet, once that was suggested to me and I started to research it, I realized, oh no, there was a whole opportunity, but I didn't want to look and sound like all the others. And so it was about, how do I narrow in on who my target audience is? And then how do I differentiate myself so I don't blend in with everybody else? This is one of the—
How are you unique, basically?
Yeah, how are you unique? Yes. Differentiate to dominate. We humans are a herd species, just like elephants and antelopes and zebras. Oh my. We herd, we collect, we collaborate, we travel in packs. And so it is very scary for us as business people to step out from that herd, because our DNA says, well, now you are going to be picked off by a predator. There's a lion waiting around the corner to have you.
Scary.
It's very scary. Being different is very scary, but being different is the only thing that gets you noticed. And you can't just be different for difference sake. You have to actually have a true differentiator, something that makes your business different in a good way.
So what do you think your worst investment was?
Oh man, there's some clients that I invested my heart and soul into that were mismatches. There are some employees that I invested a lot of money in that were really, really big mistakes on my part.
Let's jump into that client thing for a second. When you said, you've had some clients that didn't work out. So when a client has been unhappy, how did you rectify it? How did you work through that as a business?
Well, it used to be that I would take any client because, we're new and that's what I thought we were supposed to do. And so we did. And that's where the mismatches happened. They had unrealistic expectations. I didn't qualify them well enough at the beginning. I let them kind of run over us. I let them take advantage of us. I didn't charge enough. I did all the things that you do when you're new and hungry and scared. And so then when I realized this is who we are, and business attraction should work like a magnet. Two ends, right? So the one end, you are attracting like attracts like, boom. But on the other end, you're repelling, just like a magnet, what isn't a good fit. And once I started to do that, it got so much better. And once I started realizing that the greatest gift I could give to my agency was to say no to mismatched clients, to people who didn't value us, to companies that weren't going to change, we parted ways with a very valuable client in terms of money and reputation, and they were happy. They did not want us to leave. They actually talked us out of quitting and had us around for a few more months, and then tried to talk us out of quitting the second time. but they didn't want to do the things that we knew were the right things. They wanted to do the same thing they'd been doing. And so I said, well, I'm going to be held accountable, not in the financial sense, but in the, I told you you would grow if you do these things. Now you don't want to do these things we're suggesting. You want to run back to the safety of what you did before we got there. I can't match that approach with growth. That's a mismatch. And so we're going to get to the end of the year. You're going to look back and you're going to say, we didn't grow like you said. Well, no, you didn't do any of the things I said to grow. So we have to bow out respectfully. And that was a very hard decision to walk away from 6 figures. I had a client who cursed at one of my employees and fired him on the spot. Big client. Huge. But if my job is to protect them and provide the resources they need to be successful and make sure that they're happy, how am I living that? My behavior doesn't match the value. So my behavior has to match the value. I think mission, vision, culture, values are very important, but you're missing a piece if you don't have stated behaviors. And so we added 18 behaviors to our document that says this is how we behave to live those values.
Which you think would be self-explanatory, or like not self-explanatory. What's the right word? Like just, like
right. It'd be obvious. Yeah. But it's
right?
not, because if I tell you that my value is trustworthiness, how do we live that? What's the behavior that exhibits that? If I tell you that I value my team, and you asked me earlier, you asked a clarifying question because you were like, wait, team first, then client? Yes. Yes. Can't serve the clients if I have an unhappy team. Can only do good work for clients with happy people who are able to do good work. And they can't do good work if they're miserable at work.
Of course. Yep.
So it seems obvious, but we have to have behaviors to deliver those values.
Yeah. So where do you see your business going in the next 5 years? You've already done so much. You're in a Hall of Fame. Like, what is next for the next 5 years? Do you have plans to sell your business? Are you building it so that like maybe someone else can take over?
We've gone back and forth on that. Michael always hoped one of the kids would take over. They've been very clear in their thoughts on that. So a couple of years ago, we had our oldest who was in college playing baseball and planning to be a sports agent. Number 2 in college to be a chemical engineer. Number 3, videographer. She's a film editor, but not agency videos. Like, I'm going to go edit Marvel movies. Okay. And number 4 is going to be a therapist, which we all probably will need by the time she finally gets certified. And so there's nobody taking over the agency. And so I started the groundwork of figuring out if I'm going to, piece out at 60, 65, whatever that's going to look like, I need to prepare us now. It's 10, 15 years from now. I need to prepare us for sale. And so what's that look like? So I started doing research, started learning, started understanding how that works and what that would look like. And then that made me start thinking about other agencies that are for sale. And maybe I want to buy an agency to help us grow, because if I want to speed up our growth, that would be a smart way to do that. And so then all of a sudden the baseball player decides not to be a sports agent. And now he's going to get his MBA. And now maybe he likes this whole marketing thing. And so now he's in Nashville working for a marketing agency, which is awesome. So he's learning from somebody else and understanding, and really kind of earning his way and beefing up his resume. And so maybe one day he comes here and takes over for us. I don't think that we'll ever stop working. I enjoy what I do. I think that, part of me being happy is having community. It's having faith. It's having a strong family, and it's having purpose with my work. And so that doesn't mean that I work 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, in the same way I've always worked. It's me doing more consulting. It's me doing more teaching. It's me doing more training, because I get joy from that, and it keeps me active and engaged, and it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So what advice do you have for other women as they grow their business and want to hit 7 figures?
Know who you are. Know who you want to work with. Nope, that's too broad. Narrow. No, still too wide. Narrow. Not quite. One more time. Okay, there you go. That's exactly how targeted and segmented and specific you need to be. To be able to develop ongoing marketing. Marketing is not everybody's skill set. I get that. I'm not trying to ask a fish to climb a tree. I appreciate that we don't all have the same talents. However, no business is going to be successful without marketing. So either you know how to do it, you learn how to do it, or you hire somebody who can do it. Those are the only three options. Understand your business, your financials, your processes, and make sure that you're aligning who you are with who you want to work with who you want to work for, so that you can enjoy what you're doing.
So where can we find you? Please share your business website, any kind of lead magnets or freebies you might have, anything, your podcast, of course. Like, it sounds like it's going to be super useful.
All those places. He Said, She Said branding podcast is something Michael and I do together, which is kind of fun. And we bring in marketing directors and entrepreneurs and talk to them about their journey, similar to this. I think that the book that we wrote is good. It's He Said, She Said branding. We have two very different approaches on how we do our jobs and even how we met. And so that's a fun little read. And it's a good way to get insight. The website, you can go to brandRUSSO.com. And then Brand State U is all about ongoing education. And I've partnered with 4 other trainers. And so whether it's personal development, professional development, leadership development, sales, or marketing, kind of the 5 tools, we've got you covered. And so it's all about classes and ongoing opportunities to learn.
Oh, I really wanted to get into that, and we just didn't have the time. But that sounds like such a cool endeavor as well. Fun. So you may have already said this, but what is one philosophy, mantra, or quote you try to run your business by?
No regrets. We're either going to win or we're going to learn.
Win or learn. I like that. No regrets. Win or learn. Not fail. Win or learn.
Learn.
You know, I hear that a lot because sometimes I interview people and sometimes the question comes up, you know, what's a mistake you've made? And people always say, I don't know if looking back, they're not mistakes because I've learned from all of them.
Sometimes they're expensive lessons. But I wouldn't be sitting where I am right now without everything that came before. And I'm happy where I am.
I like it. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this interview, Jaci. And if you're part of our audience and listening to the show, and if you found this episode valuable and maybe you want to know more about branding and marketing, or you know someone who does, do us a favor and share the show because that might help someone grow their business. So until next time, you can find me on LinkedIn or tag me on Instagram at Virtually Curie. So thank you, Jaci, again. And stick around. We're going to do exclusive content questions. Stick around, meaning sign up for my newsletter, because then you'll get the exclusive content questions that Jaci's going to provide us with. Thank you, Jaci.
Thank you.